All righty. Tuesday night. Firing up a live. What's going on today? So let's just talk about before we get into the main topic tonight. If you're somebody that's catching up on the replay, so big news today that was released by Wad Wars, which is also news that I'm just getting myself, is that athletes are allowed to bring in backpack style bags. Okay. Now, with this, I know my gear bag is enormous. We're not going to be able to fit all of our gear. Well, you maybe can. So I have a huge gear bag that's got tons of stuff, and that's my normal custom thing to bring. But I am, unfortunately, all of us are unfortunately at mercy of this event. So they actually gave us an exception to allow backpacks, and it is what it is. However, I would like you to consider that if this event goes well and we abide by the rules and it's fun, and we do a good job collectively, we will be able to do this again and again and again and again. Like anything else, you only get better with experience and practice and learning. So if this goes really well, we're going to be able to potentially get our full gear bags in. So I'm working on getting a little bit more specifics about the backpacks because some people have gigantic duffel style bags that can be worn as a backpack. And I think that is going to be okay. But I will find that out for you guys and get that information to you as soon as possible. Other news: I'm going to have full info on coaches passes within the next, hopefully within the next day. But coming all together. That's that. So happy to fire or answer any questions if you guys have them. Once again, a lot of this is out of my control, and I appreciate, overwhelmingly, most people have been understanding and pretty cool. There's been a few negative Nancy's out in the world, and that's just how it is. The reality of the situation is right now we have 121 athletes signed up, so it's unlikely that, just by numbers, you put 100 people in a room, not all 100% of them are going to be positive, uplifting, chill people. It's just not how it goes. However, I invite all of you to be cool, be friendly. Most of you are. This isn't a problem. I don't have to ask anything extra from any of you guys whatsoever. This is going to be a really fun day. It's a very special opportunity, and I hope that everybody treats it as such, despite not really having completely 100% ideal circumstances. So just give me the opportunity to, lead all of us in what's going to be one heck of a day. This is a very special thing that we get to do, and not to be sassy about it or anything, but many people complain about parking lot shows and bad venues and this and that. And if we're going to go forward and keep growing this thing, then we just all have to be cool. So that's that. All right. So topic of the night is creating your own luck. Creating your own luck. This is something that I think everybody needs to be strongly, you really need to be on top of this and just consider all of the aspects of when and how you can create your own luck. I'm going to give you a personal example right now. It is very lucky. I'm very blessed that I was able to be invited to participate in this event at Raymond James Stadium. Amazing, right? So, in case you didn't know, the last 2 years of World's Strongest Manatee, I partnered with Brandon Hardy at Barbell Vice. And because of that partnership, we were able to do a little bit bigger venue. We did this at the Manatee County Fairgrounds. So it worked really, really well. Unfortunately, World's Strongest Manatee at this moment in time was not big enough for me to really foot the bill entirely for the fairgrounds. Okay. I love that venue. I really would like to go back there again and do another show there because the venue is just phenomenal. However, Brandon's going in a different direction in his life. So I was not going to do World's Strongest Manatee this year. That was my plan. I was very upset about it because this is my pride and joy. It's my favorite event. It is my brand. I love it. However, because 3 years ago, I said yes to taking on the opportunity to an expo show, which is Beast of the Bay. I said, yes, I'll do it. I have done, in my opinion, a mostly pretty good job of running those shows. That is the Fit Fest Expo. And because of that, because I have been on good terms with the promoter, Chris, who runs Wild Wars and the Fit Fest, when things shook up a little bit this year, I got the opportunity to jump in on Wild Wars and Raymond James Stadium. This is the biggest venue that any strongman competition has ever been held at. I say that very humbly. It's an amazing honor, but because I have been professional and done my part and delivered on the past couple of opportunities with the expo promoter at FitFest, I was asked to participate in this. So that is one way that I created my own luck. But I want you to think about this in terms of you as an athlete. What does this mean? So I posted today on my Instagram the story of Bill Pearl at the 1971 NABBA Mr. Universe show. Okay. Or I forget the name of it, but it was the NABBA, North American Bodybuilding Association Championships. And at this moment in time, Serge Oliva was one of the top dogs in all of bodybuilding, right? So if you don't know much about bodybuilding, he was somebody that even rivaled Arnold and is still to this day looked at as one of the best bodybuilders that has ever graced the stage. So while bodybuilders were gathering and getting together and getting ready for the competition, there was a man walking around with his son, and son was enamored by all of the bodybuilders, and they went up to Serge Oliva and said, "Hey, can my son take a picture with you, or can you sign this magazine for him?" And Serge Oliva just kind of brushed him off and said, "Not now, too busy." Okay, so all right, no problem. So then they keep kind of going down, and they walk up to Bill Pearl. The man and his son ask, "Hey, Bill, do you mind taking a picture with my kid?" And Bill said, "Yeah, of course." And it was an even bigger thing. Bill Pearl took a few seconds out of his time. He picked the kid up, put him on his shoulder. They talked for several minutes. And lo and behold, Bill didn't know this at the time, but that dad with his son, that was actually the head judge of the bodybuilding show. So imagine, you're out there on stage. The curtains pull apart and you're looking at your judges in the front row who you're trying to make a good positive impression on, and put yourself in the shoes of being somebody who brushed off the head judge, and then put yourself in the shoes of somebody who was very kind just because to that same person. What we have to consider in all of these things there is a human element to judging. There's a human element to sports. There's a human element to all of these things. So if you have an immediate connection with somebody such as your judge, right? Whether or not this person is doing their absolute very best to be a completely objective, non-emotional, fair judge, there still are subconscious layers that are going to bias you whatsoever, right? And when you have that connection with somebody, and like they know that you are trying your absolute hardest and being sincere and very legitimate as a person, they're going to subconsciously want you to win, right? So Bill Pearl ended up actually winning that show, and I don't think it was political, didn't have anything to do with that. If you still go look, this is a relatively famous story in bodybuilding. Bill Pearl definitely won that show, right? And it was close. When we're splitting hairs at the very highest level for anything, the margins are so slim. But if you're looking at two people completely identical, whether you're thinking of it or not, you just might look more favorably on the nicer person, right? So if you're somebody who is constantly a butthead, constantly a jerk, constantly picking fights with other people, it kind of comes back to that subconscious layer of, well, it's just subconscious. Like, people are not really going to want you to win in their hardest parts. This isn't going to say we're going to like screw people, but you have to really think about those things. If somebody wants you, like thinks very highly of you, they might be just a split second faster on that stopwatch. They might be lenient to you on that. And again, this is all trying to remain in the context of these people that are judging are going to be fair, but there are layers to all of this. Now, let's get a little bit deeper into this. And this is about like your ethics, your code of conduct, and who you are as a person in every facet of life, right? If you are somebody who is glass is half empty, if you are a pessimistic individual, you're going to consider the worst case scenarios. And we create our reality. You are constantly manifesting whatever's going on in your life, period. That is it. If you don't believe that, I have bad news for you. It is real. Everything that's happening in your life is the sum of the thoughts and actions, beliefs, and vibrational frequency that you hold as a person. So if you are somebody who is just always negative and tense, that is going to lead you into the things that you are thinking about losing, not performing your best. If you are somebody who is positive, right, then you are going to make the best out of the worst situations. Okay. This is a very good example that happens all the time when you see people that will make a mistake during an event and they just go right along and continue pick their way back up or do whatever and just blast right through because we're thinking about the best possible scenario. Nothing ever happens perfectly. One of my favorite, most recent examples is Mitch Hooper at the Arnold this past year, dropped the frame, but picked it right back up and actually finished and won the event. So when we're thinking about, you can think about this in a few ways. Let's say you're setting up for your frame carry and you're tense and you say, I can't make mistakes. I can't make mistakes. I can't make mistakes. If you're going to drop it, you're going to have that little second where you might doubt yourself and you say like, oh shit, well, I dropped it. I'm never going to do it now. But if you're going in on the other perspective and you're thinking, I'm going to do my best no matter what, then you are building a mindset of somebody who is going to succeed despite that drop. A lot of people think that Mitch Hooper's lift heavy, be kind thing is insincere, but it's not. It is a overall perspective in life about, not just being kind to others, but to yourself and forgiving. If something goes wrong, that you are going to be bringing your best self to whatever happens, right? We've all seen these people at competitions who collapse under pressure or they collapse, under the weight of their own expectations. And I just don't understand why you would want to go into any situation like that. So you really have to think about these things. This is about how others view you. This is about how you view yourself. And then also, we are all in this together. We talk about this a lot on these live streams in the Strongman Club. But let's say you need help at an event. If you're somebody that's a giant butthead and you need, oh man, I forgot my elbow sleeves, or oh man, I don't have any chalk, or oh man, I need some tape. If you're just rude and grouchy to other people, nobody's going to want to help you. But one time at the Ocala Strength Open, when it was still the Super Total a couple years ago, I forgot my elbow sleeves. Will Ramirez, who I'm very good friends with now, but was not as much at the time, lent me his elbow sleeves for a round. If I was somebody that was a jerk to him all the time, he wouldn't have done that. So who you are as a person, this is this character, this integrity thing, really makes a big difference in so many aspects. If you're really nice, and you're a good, kind, caring person, when you're warming up, this is especially true if you are more of a novice or a beginner level person, you're going to be more likely to get these little tips and tricks from other people. When I was warming up at OSG, I was warming up on the yoke with Dylan Thompson, who was the eventual champion. And we were just, talking, hanging out, this and that. But we would change weights. We would set the yoke up to our different heights for each person. And I noticed that some of these other people who were more standoffish, even though they were very good athletes themselves, people were less inclined to help them out with the weight changes and resetting the yoke heights. So these things all really make a big difference. You're going to have an easier time succeeding by just like the overall character that you bring, right? So it is creating your own luck, right? Because I have, last year, 2 years ago at OSG, talked to Dylan a good bit. I actually got next to him in line at weigh-ins when I didn't know him at all. We just chatted up, had a normal conversation, and talked to him a couple more times throughout the weekend. I ended up seeing him again at South Carolina Strongest Man. It was just cool. Like, man, it was great to compete with you. So awesome. I was asking him hey man, any insights on this, tips, tricks, and he shared some good things. In particular, on that was a Husafel carry into a max distance sandbag carry, was awesome. He shared some really nice things with me. And then when I saw him again, once again at OSG this past year, me and him were hanging out and helping each other, setting up things in the back, right? So you just have to think about this. You create your own luck, whether it's good or bad. This ultimately comes down to, what type of attitude and mindset are you carrying day to day. It's really very important that you focus on that. And listen, we're all human. We all go through bouts. We all go through phases where sometimes we're having not just a bad day. Sometimes we have bad weeks. Sometimes we have bad months. You may look back and see yourself having a bad year, and that's okay. But you can turn that around at any moment, right? Everybody has a shot at redemption. It's just what, rehabilitation. Everybody's got a shot at rehabilitation, and you can, earn your luck back. But if you are somebody who's carrying a pattern of negativity, being grumpy, leaving negative comments on social media all the time, why would anybody help you out whatsoever? This is what I find so interesting about some promoters are really very clueless when not a lot of people are signing up for their shows, when they constantly down talk others, they constantly inflate their own ego, and they don't help out at other shows, and they don't even show up for most of the shows that they sign up for, right? And then they're sitting around and they're wondering, oh, why I put together this incredible, like, super cool event. I just don't get why nobody wants to come to this. Well, listen, man, you're a jerk to people. People don't like you, right? You've never been helpful, and all you do is lie and inflate your own ego. Why would anybody want to do that? On the other hand, I do a lot of these things out of pure passion and wanting to help, but I go to shows to help out, to volunteer. This is not about like, oh, look at me, I'm so awesome. But listen, I went up to Tallahassee 2 weekends ago and I busted my freaking butt for Brett Fain at that show. That was honestly, for me, just as a volunteer, pretty grueling. The athletes were all working hard, but man, I moved more weight than almost everybody else other than Brett that weekend. But that leaves an impression on people, right? Like people know that I'm here and I'm going to work hard. So that's a ripple effect where people that volunteer for me know that, hey, I see Steve doing this, so I'm going to do it too. And athletes that are there, if they're going to sign up for my show, they're like, man, I see Steve working his butt off. I know that he's probably going to work really hard on this event and he's going to, deliver. So think about how this affects all aspects in your entire life. Is really what I'm saying. You create your own luck and your own opportunities, and then you just have to make the most of it. It's really all that this comes down to is, you create these opportunities that you have to capitalize on. Yeah. So it's a bit of a monologue there, but I do sincerely believe that these things, happen. Many, many years ago, I used to go to a basketball camp, and we used to have a guest speaker that would come in and shoot 200 free throws. And his bit, he was a paid motivational speaker, and his bit was that if he missed more than 10, then the entire engagement would be free. I am pretty sure that that guy never did a free seminar. So he would just sit there, dribble after dribble, and just shoot over and over and over and over again. And he used to say that, luck is preparation meets opportunity, right? So if you are, again, preparing yourself to be in these good positions and be in the right mindset, not every day is going to be your day where you finish on top, but someday, and maybe many days, it is going to be. But what are you doing to prepare yourself? How are you preparing yourself? It's back to what I was saying. Are you preparing yourself negatively and thinking the worst case scenarios? And then you're going to get that, right? If you're somebody that just thinks, everybody is below you and you act that way, nobody's going to want to help you. So those are my thoughts on that. I could keep going on that, but I'm just going to open it up to the floor. I see we got a few people watching live. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have any questions about anything, whether it's this subject, World's Strongest Manatee, I'll do my best to field them. But would really like to hear your guys' thoughts on some of this. If you have any good personal experiences or stories related to that, really would like to hear that as well. Always love hearing this stuff. But, just be a good person. It really blows my mind that some people continue to be so negative, really. Pretty amazing. So while we're in between here, again, guys, pop in some questions if you have them. Just that's something I was gonna say on this. Oh yes, of course. Want to tip you guys off to anybody that's watching. Thursday night is gonna be a pretty big one at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna have a free USS Nationals seminar. So this year, Charlotte, North Carolina, the USS Nationals have, let's see, the yoke, log press, frame deadlift, frame carry, and sandbag throws. So we're gonna go over all of the different techniques, tips, and tricks, strategies that you will need to do well in those, as far as a lot of these intangibles, these competition mindset tips, game day preparation, rituals, even some things such as water cuts that you need to be thinking about. Because what happens a lot of times at nationals is the size and the scale of this event can be pretty overwhelming for some people. So we're going to cover all of that. When I really started taking strongman pretty serious, I had my sights set pretty high on the official strongman games, and I had never really done a very large scale competition like that before. And I think that I handled it pretty well, but I learned so much. I mean, the biggest takeaway for me was the caliber of competition. I'd been to some decently sized shows before, but man, just the rate and the speed and the pace and the overall professional way that all of these guys handle themselves at the highest level was completely unlike anything whatsoever that I had been to before. So if you have not been to any of these really, really super large shows where, Nationals will have 500 people this year, you're going to need to consider some of those things, right? How do you handle yourself the day of? How do you stay informed on when you're going, how to handle yourself, how to warm up, how to eat, all of those things, because there are going to be a lot of unexpected things. And part of this too is there are always unknowable things. There is always the unknown and the unknowable. At Nationals last year, the 198 class, they got all 5 of their events done in the span of about 4.5 hours. That is insane. So fast. It was extremely rapid. Our group was closer to about 6.5 hours, which is a pretty good time, right? But they were finishing up their 5th event when we were warming up for our 4th. So naturally, as you can expect, there's a lot of people that would have been completely unprepared for that. Here's what I would do. I would be prepared for your plan A, your plan B, your plan C, and maybe even your plan D. And if you're prepared, it may sound like, wow, I have so many things to consider and get ready for, but not really if you have the right plan of attack ahead of time. So South Carolina Strongest Man, this was one that went for about, I think we started at 9 in the morning and we finished at 8 p.m. at night. So it was all almost an 11-hour day, I had ready to go a very big thing of food. Okay, because I was able to eat and chow down and have some good stuff. But I also was prepared if this event was going to run really quick. I had oranges, I had orange juice, I had sugars, I had electrolytes, I had a lot of stuff. So if I had to end up going pretty quick and I didn't have time to stomach a full meal in between, then I would be fine. This is something I think a lot of people are missing out on with World Strongest Manatee as well. It's like, look, guys, we're going to start at 8:30. I think that we're going to be done at the latest by 4. So let's just think about that. That's 7 hours or so. That's going to give you, you're going to be competing every approximately hour and 15 minutes. How much food do you really need to bring for that situation? You need to make sure that you are fueled and hydrated in the days leading up to this event. If you're somebody that's doing a water cut, then you need to make sure you're doing things like getting an IV and then slamming and rifling carbs, salt, potassium, electrolytes back into your body. I have done almost a 20-pound weight cut before. The most extreme competition I ever did was also the hottest competition I ever did. So, I'm very willing to help people. I want to talk to anybody that's having any concerns about this. But to tell you what I've been through, I cut from 194 down to 176 for the OSG Southeast Regionals and rehydrated completely successfully. And then I had a 2-day comp where both days were on blacktop in August in Florida. So there were not outdoor bathrooms. There were not public seats. There was none of that, right? So I was able to hydrate well and fine because, again, I got my IV, I have my hydration and food protocol ready to go. And then, just as a general tip for people, right? Like, game day is not the time that you need to really master and lock in your nutrition. It is important, but you should be having your micronutrients, your macronutrients, all that stuff dialed in the weeks, months leading up to a show. When it's game day, what I personally like to do is, I'm carbing up all freaking day long the day before, right after I weigh in. And then my last meal of the day is a very high protein, I should say moderate protein, but high fat diet. Because if you're cutting a lot of weight, you need to recover your triglycerides. That's one of those things that you need back in. So I'll have my personal go-to is steak, eggs, and salmon. I'll have that for dinner the night before. I will have the same thing again for breakfast with a lot of rice and orange juice because we need those carbs high. We need your glycogen stores up as full as possible so we have the energy to burn off for these explosive, fast-paced strongman events. And then after we have that breakfast, I ideally want to have that somewhere around 3 hours before my first event, maybe longer. That's fine. Fats and proteins digest pretty slow, so you'll get the nutritional benefit of that, going pretty much throughout the rest of the day. But protein's main job in your body is to recover from hard training sessions. This is not the time that you're going to recover. You need to perform. So you need the energy to do that. That is where your carbohydrates come in. So if we have this day coming up and people are worried about like, oh, I don't know what food I'm going to bring in, I would just like you to consider that, listen, carbs, carbs, carbs. It does not take that much packing space in your bag to have juices, sugars, Gatorade powder, dude. Get Gatorade powder. There's water fountains all over this. I looked this up earlier. There's over 100 water fountains in Raymond James. There's going to be plenty of places for you to fill your water bottle up, put a scoop of sugary electrolyte Gatorade powder in to give you that energy, and then you'll be good to go, right? You're not going to have enough time to digest a big full meal in between. So think about those little snacks. Some people like, Sour Patch Kids or gummy bears, because again, those are very easy to digest and they get into your system to be used for fuel right away. So went in a little bit of a different tangent there, but that's just about being prepared, right? There's always going to be the unknown and the unknowable. So, you can make sure that you're ready for any circumstance or situation with your preparation and thinking about all of the opportunities, right? Take some time. If you don't really like understand this, that's okay. I want you to take some time and, maybe get like a journal or a notebook out and do some brainstorming. And I want you to think about the best case scenario, how your day is going to go as far as the pace, the order, the flow, how you're going to warm up. Then I want you to also think about the worst case scenario. Let's say this is the worst freaking run show you've ever been to in your entire life. World's Strongest Manatee is not going to be that. I feel very confident it's going to be an amazing show. But I'm telling you, for you as the athlete, you should always be thinking about these things at shows. How am I going to warm up for these events if they're 2 hours apart? Or how am I going to warm up for these events if they're 30 minutes apart or 10 minutes apart, right? Just consider all these things and you will be ready to go. That's actually something that's going to put you very far ahead of the rest of your competition, because the truth of the matter is I've been running so many of these shows, so I can tell you firsthand that people do not prepare well. So you can, once again, here we are, back full circle, create your own luck by being prepared. That's that. But I do feel pretty confident for anybody watching you. I think for anybody watching this, I think we're going to be done probably by 4, and I think that's when we're going to do awards. So that means for a lot of you, you'll be done lifting at 3, maybe. That's that. So this has been Tuesday Night Live. I'm going to kick it around for 2 minutes here. If anybody has any questions or just anything they'd like to share. So Cole Ungerer was in here. Cole said, always play in the long game, do good work, treat people right, and you would be surprised how many opportunities come to you. Listen, because this is a great example, because Cole is somebody who's come and volunteered and busted his freaking butt for me several times at competitions, man, and I appreciate the heck out of you, dude. But Cole's not going to come help me out at shows if he knows that I run like crappy shows, I treat people like crap, and I'm going to be giving him more than he signed up for. It's the reality of the situation. When you run a show and then you have your volunteers helping you load stuff into a truck until midnight, they're not going to come back to help you. Duh. Very obvious. So that's that, guys. All right, about 1 more minute. If anybody has a question, comments, concerns, any of this topic, creating your own luck, competing in strongman, world's strongest manatee, I am all ears, but give me about 45 seconds or so. Happy to go longer, but if nobody's got anything else, I'm gonna hop off here. And you guys seen that morning routine guy, Ashton Harris, recently? Guy's so corny, but I really like it. Farmers is back to a 40-meter run. Surprise. Yep. Farmers is back to a straightaway. You will see. That is like 99.9999% certain. Events are always subject to change. It says on every single registration and sign up that I put, events are always subject to change. Listen, I'm going to get out there Friday. I'm going to do a really lot of work making sure that things are going to go well, but I cannot be footing the bill to have to replace giant sections of grass at Raymond James. So I have figured this one out. I am pretty certain we're going to be doing straightaways on the Farmers. Back to it. So it's going to be fun. Can't wait. All right, guys. I appreciate you. I also talking about the Thursday night, 7 p.m. seminar. If you go to @ClubStrongman on Instagram, you can sign up for the USS National Seminar. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then immediately following, we're going to have a special guest coaching call with the Texas Titan, Gabe Pena. That one is only for members of the Strongman Club. You go sign up right now at clubstrongman.com. We are still running a 7-day free trial if you want to check it out. So not only will we have these guest coaching calls. Last month, we had Nick Myers and Nick Camby, who just competed in Europe's Strongest Man. But we've also had Andrew Clayton, Joel Dirks, Pro Strongman. We had Adam Dirks a little while before that, and more coming pretty soon. So there's training programs in there. We've got technique guides. tutorials, all these things that are going to help you be your best self. So this is a good topic. I think I'm going to do a little more digging in on creating your own luck, maybe give you a more full blown presentation because there's a lot of ways that you do that. Um, and people just think that it comes down to a training program, or they really leave so many things off the table that are holding them back from true success. This is something I really think about, like to an obsessive point, is what drives people to succeed at the higher level. And it's just so much more than following a training program and following your diet. It's of course recovery, but the mental game is what separates the best from the rest. And then sometimes it just comes down to luck. So that's that. All right, guys, have a great Tuesday night. Check out clubstrongman.com. We have that 8 p.m. Eastern members only call with Gabe Pena to talk about deadlifts. Gabe has deadlifted 1,000 pounds on a barbell, 1,100 on a trap bar, 1,150 on an 18-inch deadlift, and also 1,100, 500 kilos on the 18-inch axle at Static Monsters. That is the world record for that event. So if you want to learn how to be a great deadlifter, not just on one device, but on everything that you may come across with Strongman, that's going to be a really valuable one. We're going to talk training tips, insights, strategies on peaking, and then also we'll talk about just general strongman stuff. He was a 2-time world's strongest man competitor, especially somebody that was typically a little more undersized. So there's going to be a lot to learn from this one. So clubstrongman.com, check it out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. Stay strong.